Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Hourglass's Ambient Lighting Palette as part of my blush series. And while the palette has more than just blushes, I mean there's 6 products in here, these two are actually blushes, this is a highlighter, these are finishing powders, and this is a bronzer, but I thought that we could actually look at this and compare it to the Ambient Hourglass Metallic Strobe lighting palette. This was the palette that came out in 2017, I believe, and was sold out, and it had not come back since a month ago. So there was a lot of demand for this, a lot of people wanted this palette. The Metallic Strobe lighting formula is actually different than anything else you can get from Hourglass. There are currently no metallic strobe powders in any of their palettes. You can't get this as a single, so I think that's why it's so exclusive to this small palette, these 3 powders here, and why people have really wanted this to come back. I think what we're going to do here is, some of you guys are probably very familiar with the ambient lighting family of products, and some of you guys maybe not, and maybe you guys don't have an Hourglass, 6-pan palette. So per usual, I'm going to include timestamps below, and if you are very familiar, you can go on, skip ahead to when I apply the products. If you're interested in listening to all the different products in the ambient lighting family, stick around. Eventually we'll do some direct comparisons with the metallic strobe powders as well. Timestamps below for all of those. So starting with the palette here, this was released last fall winter time, and this is the ambient lighting palette Edit Ghost. Ghost represents the packaging here, but Hourglass releases a palette like this every year with 6 different products. The Edit palette, here we have 2 finishing powders, and finishing powders are not setting powders. They're not meant to hold your makeup, keep it together for longer after you've applied your foundation and concealer. They're meant to give you some kind of overall effect on top of your setting powder. Some people might choose to set their makeup with this if they don't mind that the makeup doesn't last as long, or they just want something really light to go about their day. But I only use these as finishing powders. This is diffuse light, and this is dim light. Both of these are available as singles in a bigger pan, part of Hourglass's core products of ambient lighting powders, and so they continue to restock them, they continue to be available. And here we have a strobe lighting powder. The strobe lighting powder is a highlighter. And this strobe powder is also available as a single, meaning, once it's sold out, they're going to continue to stock them. They're not going to be out, and it's not a limited edition product. And then dim light here is actually part of a ambient lighting trio palette. It's 3 products, and in there is 1 or 2 finishing powder. Dim light is the lighter of the 2. There's also a warmer one, and then they included a highlight. The highlight's not on here. Now, moving on from the highlight, this is a lighting bronzer. The bronzer I use very consistently every time I put on makeup, and I use this on top of my setting powder, on top of finishing powder, should I choose to use these. Here we have a strobe blush, and then here we have a lighting blush. The strobe blush is called Iridescent Rose, and this is Sublime Flush. The strobe blush has a sheen to it, hence the strobe part of the name, whereas the Sublime Flush just has a sheen, and it's more of a matte finish. Both are actually very pigmented. It may not look like it on my finger, but the strobe blush is what I have on my face, and that's it. I didn't mix it with any other blushes. I didn't mix it with this Sublime Flush. And let's just swatch it real quick on my wrist. It's pretty pigmented. This is the Strobe blush, and this is the regular blush, Sublime Flush. Now that we've swatched the blushes, let's go ahead with the other products that we already talked about. We're gonna swatch this diffuse light and dim light. Dim light's gonna be very, very light. Diffuse light, you barely notice it. It has like a rosy tone to it, and then this dim light is like a light beige. Whether I use dim light or diffuse light all over my face, it's hardly noticeable. What I actually end up doing is just swirling an all over face brush on both of these and apply it that way. You'll see in the demonstration, and because it's also easier when I use both of them, these are not very big, and next to these products or other products that you don't want to put all over your face. This blush, I don't want it all over my face, so I don't want to accidentally get some on my brush as I'm doing this. And the bronzer, since I don't use it all over my face, that's something I also want to avoid. So with these swatched, let's go ahead with this strobe light. And this strobe light here, let me make sure I get the name. This strobe light is Iridescent Strobe Light, and it is a highlight. You can see it has way more of a metallic, or I guess a shiny, shimmering finish. It is the highlight that I have on today, onto the high points of my cheeks. And then finally, this is the bronzer here. The bronzer, I think it's actually very flattering. And it's just light enough that if I go overboard and add too much, it's very easy to correct and it's easy to blend out. And I actually did add too much on this cheek here, that I actually, had to work harder in blending it out. I think I even at one point used a Q-tip to just get that excess out so it would blend a little faster. I didn't exactly have 20 minutes just to sit there to blend it, and it would simply just look too dark from this side of the face. So there you have it. These are the swatches of all 6 products from the Edit palette. Now let's move on to the Metallic Strobe light powders. The Metallic Strobe light powders may look somewhat similar to the products on the Edit palette, but they're actually not. You can see just from this side-by-side comparison is this dim light here looks like in color tone is very similar, and I would say it is, but the finish is totally different, because just doing this, you can see how metallic and how shimmering and beaming these are. Versus dim light, it's a very soft sheen to it. And by the way, if I hadn't already mentioned this, these 3 products here, the bottom row, are not repeats. And you can't actually get any of these products on any other currently available ambient lighting palettes or single pans. So just so you know. And I guess ultimately, if you're a collector, you would probably want these palettes for these 3 shades down here. And if you have a few of the annual palettes that they release, you might have, very similar shades to this already, so you might not get it. And one other thing that might be interesting to you guys is, along with this palette, the Goss collection they released last year, they also release a blush quad with 4 different blush colors. They're all strobe formula, meaning they all have like more of a sparkly finish and shimmer than this regular blush here. And this color is also not a repeat from that quad. If you're interested in the blushes, that might be something to look into. So going back to the Metallic Strobe palette, I'm going to go ahead and swatch each one of these. We'll start with Absolute Strobe Light. Look at that beaming highlight. And then we'll go into Pure Strobe Light. And look at the difference between these two and any of the powders here. Even the highlight that's supposed to be right here Very light. You can see the finish, the shimmer, huge difference. Then there is the Lucent Strobe Light, this very last one here. Just really different finishes. The metallic finishes, again, are not found in any other of the ambient lighting family of products. And I believe, if I remember correctly, this formula was also never released on anything previously that was available. So this is truly it. This is, for now, as far as we know, the only way you can get a hold of the Metallic Strobe lighting formula is through this palette. It's come back, and I don't know if it's come back for a limited time, but you can still get it on Hourglass's website or any other major online retailers. And in the demonstration, you'll see in a moment, I actually didn't apply any of the metallic strobe powders. I only applied powders found on here. So after the demo, we'll come back and I'll actually apply some of the strobe powders as highlights so you can see the difference and the effect once it's applied on the face. All right, I've got my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit Palette Ghost. Then with this fan brush, we're going to go into the bronzer here, and we're going to add that to the hollows of the cheek as a contour. It went in much harder than I thought, so we're going to have to do some extra work to blend it out. And this is what I do with the fan brush because the area is pretty small and it's right next to a blush right here and a highlighter here. I don't want to mix my bronzer with the highlighter, but you can certainly do that if you're just adding warmth all over the face and you want to look more radiant from it. But because of this blush here and this fan brush is pretty big, I just tend to do this. Just really carefully. Now I'm going to add this Strobe Blush Iridescent Rose onto the cheeks. It's very pigmented. Then finally, we're going to go into the strobe powder. This is the highlighter on the palette, and we're going to add it just here on the highlights or on the high points. You can see. And for lipstick, we're going to go with Wayne Goss's Natural Berry Lip Liner. And we're going to add a little bit of that to fill the lips. And then we're going to add Daisy as our finishing lipstick. As you saw in the demonstration, all the products that I used was from the Edit Goss palette. So now we're gonna go into the Metallic Strobe powders here and apply them onto the high points of the cheeks. So now we're gonna go into the Metallic Strobe powders and apply them onto the face as highlights. First, I will take this mini cheek brush and we're just gonna apply one of the powders on the side of the cheek for comparison. And then just as a reminder, I do have this highlighter on currently, and this is not a metallic strobe, this is just a strobe highlight. So therefore the finish is not as beaming. To give you an idea of how beaming these are, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do 2 swipes, just medium pressure. You can see the product on here already. And again, this is the pure strobe light. I'm gonna add that to just 1 swipe over my cheek. So you guys see that? Instant beaming, no metallic powder, 1 swipe of beaming powder. I'm just gonna blend that out. Ooh. Okay. All right, I cleaned off my mini cheek. Now we're going to go into Absolute Strobe Light and apply it to the other side. Same thing, I did 2 swipes just right below here, medium pressure. You can see the product on the brush. And we're gonna do a 1 swipe. The color difference on the cheeks is not very noticeable like this. You see it a little bit more in person. And for the final metallic loosened strobe light, I think what we'll do is use a soft cheek and I'm gonna swirl it around really lightly. You see the product on here. And because I just wanted to show you guys, I'm going to apply it just right here. 1 swipe. And you see, it did add some color, a little bit warmer, but this cheek is really beaming right now. Why don't we go ahead, I'll mix these 2. Absolute and Pure Light, we'll add it as a highlight on the nose. That instant beaming effect onto the forehead. Look at that. And then onto the chin a little bit. I've got so much highlight on. And you know, the cool thing about it is, if you like softer highlights, this might be a bit much, right? You saw how light-handed I went in and I've got, you know, these instant results here. But even if you're not into so much highlight, it still looks really natural and still beautiful. I think once you go in 3 or 4 times, then you really got like this blinding powder on your face. But with 1 or 2 application, or you know, 1 or 2 swipes on the palette and then apply, I think it still looks really comfortable. It looks really pretty. Might not be something you wear to work during the daytime, but anytime in the evening, I think, you know, this still looks really beautiful. So as a final part of the demonstration, I just wanted to create kind of a wet effect. We saw with the Natasha Denona Daria palette, the Bloom palette, how you can get this like overall like instant glow, very editorial, that wet look. You can actually create this with these powders as well. So using a bigger, fluffier brush, I'm just gonna go into these 2 here, very lightly, sweep, get rid of that excess. And I'm just gonna apply it onto this side of cheek, just all over. Blending it out. So you can see it's more now all over the cheek. And I'm not saying that, you know, you want to do this if you have the palette, but that's an option. You know, that's another way of getting that really glowing, glistening look. Well, I hope you found this demonstration helpful for you to understand, all the different powders available in the ambient lighting family. If you have been looking forward to demonstration on the Metallic Strobe palette, hope this was informative as well. And it's been a while since I did any videos for the blush series, but I do have something coming next week. I promise I haven't forgotten about them. I hope you guys have another good one. Thank you for watching. See you later.